Welcome to In Tune. I'm your co-host, Matt Rector, an aspiring luthier from Baltimore, Maryland.
And I'm your other co-host, Ethan Morset, a music producer and founder of Blue Haven Music based in Minnesota.
Our goal is to provide value to enterprising musicians, artists, and craftspeople by sharing our conversations and the lessons we've learned along the way.
If you like our content, help us out by following us and giving us a positive rating on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Tune in for new episodes on the first and third Wednesday of each month. This is episode 55. Matt and I had a kind of impromptu conversation at our last recording session, and we decided to make that into an episode. And kind of what we talk about is the cost of admission versus saturation and competition. So in other words, with something like, for example, music, if the cost of admission is low, like the cost to make music is low, then the saturation of competition will be higher, and then obviously the opposite for the other way around. So I am going to let us talk about it. So here is that audio.
Ethan and I were just having a little bit of an impromptu conversation about competition and operating costs and sort of comparing and contrasting the maybe ease isn't the right word, but sort of, for lack of a better word,
it's like it's the upfront cost, right? Like if the upfront cost is higher, less people are likely to get into the game. If the upfront cost is lower, more people are likely to get into the game, and that presents two different types of challenges. Saturation versus like upfront cost of like difficulty getting into the game.
I mean, so in the fields of luthiery and music production, I think there's definitely going to be competition either way. There are incredible music producers, there are incredible musicians, there are incredible luthiers. But we were talking about how, you know, at least in this day and age with music production, with a little bit of software and a couple microphones, you know, maybe a couple instruments, you can get into, you know, producing music for pretty low overhead cost, right? And you don't necessarily have to have a lot of continuing operating expenses. You
really only need a MacBook. A MacBook comes with GarageBand, and you technically can write stuff that's good enough to like be distributed with just GarageBand. Granted, you'll be limited in some regards, but like EDM, that kind of certain genres, you'll be able to write with what comes with the software.
Yeah. Well, and even like, you know, I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of recording equipment and, you know, musical instruments, right? But take, for example, a classic microphone like, you know, the Shure SM58. Or the SM57, either of those. They're both classic microphones.
They're literally the same microphone with a different like form factor where the like actual capsule is
the same. Yeah.
It's the same. One is meant for like, has the round like shape on it for vocalists so they can like get up and kind of be on it. And the other one, the SM57 is, you know, just the SM57, but yeah, they're the same microphone.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I think that's like $100, right?
It's $100. Yep.
They've been an industry standard for like they were $100 when I was a kid growing up.
And if you want to break them, you have to try really hard.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying is, I mean, there are actually, we were talking about this earlier, Bon Iver recorded one of his famous albums literally just using nothing but a inexpensive guitar and a Shure SM57. So
and a computer to record.
Yeah, and a computer. You know, but the point is that you can get into this, and it is possible to do so with a pretty small upfront cost and not a whole lot of continuing, you know, operating expenses. You know, you can buy a microphone that's even as cheap as $100, and that microphone could serve you your entire career. I mean, you'll probably want other nicer microphones for different applications at some point, but unless you really do something to,
I mean, in that microphone, you could probably drop off a balcony and it still wouldn't break.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, on the other hand, the cost of admission to Lutherie tends to require a lot of specialized tools. You can get into Lutherie in a sort of budget-friendly way, but it's, you tend to need a space where you can have a workbench. There are specialized tools. A lot of times you might want to get expensive power tools. The wood that is used that is high enough quality to be used in high quality musical instruments is generally not cheap. And if you're buying it from a luthier supplier and it's already coming in a form that is sort of easy for you to work with already, then it's usually already been processed into smaller bits, and that adds to the cost. But on the other hand, if you want to be able to do that yourself, in the long run, it will reduce your costs. But up front, the machinery to process lumber like that is not cheap.
Right.
To get into something like that. And so, every instrument that you build, you're going to have to get more materials for.
Yep.
And so, and it can be, hundreds of dollars. You could spend $100 on a microphone. I mean, I probably spend more money on
materials.
Every instrument that I build than I would on a Shure SM57. Like, so the cost of admission is a little bit different.
Oh yeah.
And so Ethan was saying that, there tends to be more competition in music because it's a little bit easier to get into. And I would probably tend to agree with that.
Well, I don't know if more competition is what I really meant. The more competition could mean multiple things. The quantity of people competing is probably higher.
That's a good way of putting it.
Whereas for you, I don't really know what it's like to be a luthier, but I imagine the quantity of people competing is lower. It's probably a different type of competition, but the competition could still be very high.
Yeah, that's probably a good way of putting it. Do you feel like that's true when you get to like your level? Because I feel like at a certain point, I think there are a lot of people, because maybe like of what you're saying, the maybe low cost to get into it. There are a lot of people who have dreams of recording music, right? Or being a musician.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people who actually aren't really that serious about it. And I feel like you've gotten past that point, right? You've gone to these conferences, these networking events. You're definitely to a point now where I guess the herd has maybe been thinned out a little bit, and your network is more with other people who are serious about this. Do you still feel like at that level, I mean, obviously there is tougher competition, right? You're competing with other serious musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess I just feel like maybe the herd thins out quickly in your situation.
Yeah, probably.
Does that make sense? Like, I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
think of a
it
great way
does.
to
It
word
does.
that.
I mean, it's the same thing. The upfront cost is easy, so it's easier to get into the game. But the people that want it to be easy will get into the game, but when it gets hard, they'll quit.
Correct. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
And that's the funny thing about like all this is like there's nothing special about outlasting everybody else. There's no talent there. Like there's no specific skill. It's just literally continuing to go, right? Like, and literally anybody can frickin' do that. It's just most people don't. Um, so yeah, I do think there is like I don't think I'm at that point where I'm like at the top tier or anything yet, but like yeah, I do think that there probably is some of that. There is some outlasting that's happening. And so yes, as you get farther along in your journey and improve, there is probably less competition. There's still tons of people that are still trying to do it, but like the other thing too is like it's no different than everything is skill based, but like you could have somebody who's been in the industry for 15 years and I've been in the industry for 3 years, let's say, 5 years, let's say, whatever. And my growth could have been faster because of certain things that happened or because of the way or because of my mindset, you know? Like I focused on the right things and focused on what I could control and not what I couldn't control and those types of things. Like a lot of people stall and spin their wheels, right? So they could have been doing it for 15 years, but they didn't make a ton of progress because they're spinning their wheels most of the time. Um, so like, I don't know. I think like as you go on, yeah, there's the people that just give up. There's also the people that continue to do it, but aren't doing what they need to get better, right? Like things like honestly listening to feedback and instead of rejecting it, like actually listening to it and doing something with it. Uh, Getting mentors that know more than you and paying them to help you get better. Like those types of things. There's people that you probably spend 15 to 20 years saying, I don't need that. I don't need that. I just need to put time in. And I think there's something to be said that yes, time is part of it. Just keep going, but you also have to like make the most of your time, right? Like you can't just like do anything and expect to make progress, um, or make much meaningful progress. So I don't know. I think yeah, there probably is a thinning of the herd as you go longer. Um, I've been very intentional. I've been very intentional about the mentorship aspect of it, which I think has been huge because I would have there's no way. There's no way I would have like gotten to where I was without having somebody help me say, this is the direction you should go. You're doing this right now. We recommend that you don't do that. We recommend that you do this instead. Like there's just no way. I would have blown 2 extra years just figuring that crap out on my own. You know?
At least, probably, right?
Yeah. It's like
I would say. I
it's
mean that type of information is invaluable, and you're not going to know that until you either learn the hard way or someone with more experience tells you.
Yeah, and that's what I've been telling my mentors all along. Like these things that happened at this conference, they're I worked hard, but they're also like hugely because of you. Which I firmly believe. Um, and uh, I mean that kind of stuff that speeds your progress up way faster. It's way better to do that and spend whatever it takes to have a mentor than it is to stumble for 10 years trying to figure it out yourself.
Well, it's like when I worked at the music shop. I mean, my skills in repair work improved dramatically.
Hmm.
Um, there are things I learned there that would have taken me a lot longer to figure out, and just also being presented a lot of wider variety of different repair jobs gave me more opportunities for learning. Um,
We kind of deviated a little bit from like the
yeah, I
competition thing, but yeah, I think yeah, the herd is does I guess thin as the longer you go.
so in contrast, I think I mean that's going to be in any industry, suppose, but I think in your situation, there's maybe more people who get into it either as a hobby or as a casual pursuit, and the people who are really serious about it stick with it. And I think the herd starts to thin a little bit more quickly, and then the people who are really serious about, you know, that group is much smaller, I think. But
Probably
on the
so.
other hand, I would say with Luthery, the cost of admission is a little bit higher. And I think most of the people who get into it know, I mean, there are more costs. So I think the people who tend to get into it are going to stick with it in general and being a little bit more serious. Because if you're buying, an entire workshop full of tooling that's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment and materials, like you're probably not just going to build one instrument and be like, okay, that's enough. Like,
Yeah.
or, I mean, I'm sure
It's an
there are lots
investment.
of, I'm sure there are lots of hobbyists who maybe buy like a kit, right? From like like a StewMac like kit to build because they want to build their own guitar. But I wouldn't consider those people who are really serious about being a
Luthiers.
luthier professionally,
Right.
you know. And the people who are interested in doing it professionally, I would say, there's maybe a smaller group at the start,
But once
but
they're in,
more
they're in.
yeah, like I think that the people who are in it are in it. Um.
So do you
So
think that
yeah,
means that they're like your industry and my industry are more in that regard specifically are more apples to apples as far as competition? Or because like basically what I'm hearing is I like the word cost of admission. I don't know if that's your term or not, but um, the cost of admission to get into music production is lower than the cost of admission to get into luthery. But because it's lower, it means you have a lot of people that are less serious about it because it's easier to get into it, and they get thinned out early on because they don't like what happens when it gets hard. Whereas it's hard for you from the get go, so everybody coming in is already serious about it, or most people. Like, so what do you think? Does that end up being like in my case, I'm competing with serious people, you're competing with serious people now? Or like, you know what I mean? It's obviously still
yeah.
different. It's obviously still different because mine's in
It
the digital realm, yours is in the physical realm. But
it is. It is different, but I think what you're asking is if it's sort of a bit of a wash, and I would maybe agree with that because I think that at least from my perspective in music production, once you get past that initial hurdle, I think that your actual pool of competition is probably
smaller.
smaller.
Yeah.
And I think initially it seems gigantic because of all of the resources that are available and all of the people who just want to do it as a hobby or get into it, you know. But I think that the actual amount of people who are really serious about it, like you are, is probably much smaller.
See, this is good stuff. Why aren't more people listening to Intune?
So yeah, I don't know. And I'm not trying to say I don't want to discourage people and say that Luthery is harder to get into. That wasn't really my purpose. There are ways you can go about it that are cost effective and budget friendly, but I would say it's maybe a little bit more difficult to do it that way.
The cost of admission's absolutely higher.
So
It's just interesting how the cost of admission could be the episode title. How the cost of admission affects the outcome, right? Like how, like you could even do it with music, right? Like music 50 years ago versus music now, right? Like you had less people playing the game because the cost of admission was so high. But it wasn't as saturated, so once you were able to pay the cost, it was maybe a little bit easier to stick out
mm-hmm.
because there just wasn't as many players. Whereas now it's the flip, the opposite, where the cost of admission is low, so people can play the game for very, very cheaply. But those people, maybe even a majority of those people, they're flaky at best, right? Where they're like, "Oh yeah, it would be really cool to be a musician. I've always loved music." But then like the first or second difficulty they encounter, or they only get through 1 year and they're like, "Ah, it's still not where I want to be." Like then they give up, you know? It's just an interesting phenomenon to me, right? The whole cost of admission and how it affects people's reactions to things like an industry. I don't know. That's the one thing they say about the music industry. It's, oh, it's so saturated. Oh, it's so saturated. And it is. But like, you're probably right. Like, it probably just is a matter of outlasting people. Like, not everyone is going to be able to hang on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's probably the same thing with just about any industry. For you, it takes longer to build up all of the tools and all of the gear to become really, really, really efficient, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big hand tool woodworking person, as you know. So I am not someone who necessarily believes in the idea of having a specialized power tool for every single, you know, job and application. I believe in developing a lot of skills, you know, physical skill in your hands to be able to do things by hand so you don't have to be so reliant on
Power tools.
well, not just power tool, but a
Automation.
special jig, you know, a special jig or automation or special tool for every application. And if you're a one man shop, like you probably have to be that way. There are things that you're going to want to build to speed things up and to make things more efficient. And to, you know, there are things that you're going to want to have. You can actually build really fantastic instruments with actually a very small set of hand tools. And you could thrift them and it wouldn't be that expensive. But the challenge, I think, with that is as like a music, like someone getting into music production, you can probably pretty easily say, okay, like I'm going to get a MacBook. It's going to have GarageBand. Go buy a couple mics. There's probably pretty good advice out there on the internet for what to do to kind of get you going.
Yep.
And there is good advice out there on the internet to how to get started in lutherie. But if you're going to thrift those tools, like you can buy expensive ones new. If you want good quality tools, you need to either buy vintage or antique tools and fix them up a little bit. Or if you want good quality new tools, they're probably going to be expensive. So if you're trying to save money, you're probably going to be buying vintage tools.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge with that is if you've never done this before and you're not a woodworker, you know, you're getting started, a lot of these tools, you're not even really going to know how they work or what to look for. I mean, I struggled with that. I bought a lot of tools in the beginning because I thought I needed them or I thought that this was a good deal. And then I get it home like, oh, this little thing doesn't quite work right. And I didn't necessarily know what to look for. I think that that's sort of a struggle if you are going the budget route in terms of getting started with woodworking. And the other thing too is if you're going to try to do it in that way where you are less reliant on jigs or machines for precision and you're, you know, developing precision in your hands and that sort of thing, there's a bigger learning curve there. And so it's like you can keep the cost low, but you're going to spend a lot of time kind of messing around with tools and you're going to spend a lot of time thrifting and tool hunting and browsing eBay and you're going to buy some tools that are duds and aren't going to work the right way. And you're going to spend a lot of time making mistakes developing your skills. Or you go the expensive route. Let's say you have all the space, you have all the money, you can afford to buy every specialized tool that you want. You can go that route, but it's going to be really expensive up front, and you're going to, pay for expensive new tools. Um, and you're still going to have to, have a learning curve. You maybe are going to be, it's maybe going to be a little easier because you can dial in a machine. And once that machine is dialed in, you can use it for that one or two operations or whatever. And it's repeatable rather than having to learn, the hand skills. So I'm not going to say there's no learning curve when you have nice tools, because that's not true. But um, there are just different challenges depending on how you're approaching it and what you can afford.
How many YouTube channels or resources are there out there to help people get into, like, help get over this hump? Like, I know they're out there, but like, is there one like solid resource that anybody can go to? Because like, obviously music production, there's so many YouTube channels that just cover that, and obviously not all of them are as good as the others, but like, it's pretty easy to find good tutorials on music production stuff.
To be honest, I would actually say that is not a lot. Um, there are a lot of good luthier resources out there, but for someone in this specific scenario, I mean, this is the challenge that I encountered. There are great tutorials from companies like StuMac. And don't get me wrong, StuMac's a great company. I've had great experiences with them. I own a lot of their tools, but they are expensive. They sell a lot of specialized luthier tools. They offer a great warranty. They basically offer like a pretty much unconditional lifetime warranty.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I wear out any of my files, literally in my lifetime, I can just say, "Hey, this file wore out," and they will replace it. They have great customer service, but you pay for that. And on the their tutorial videos want to sell you every tool to possibly do a job. And
Yep.
so I wouldn't necessarily say they're exactly a great resource for someone who's trying to learn to do something with minimal tools, because in my experience, they're a tool company. They want to sell you tools. I'm not shaming them for that. But they're going to try to sell you every tool they can. That's just what they're going to do. And then on the flip side, most of the popular like luthier resources, there are ones out there that you have to pay for, right? There are different ones that are like by subscription service. I don't know. Some of those things I don't really buy into the idea of them, but I'm sure that some of them are very valuable. But then there's the free resources out there that I've seen. A lot of those people already have huge shops with tons of tools. And so it's not really a great comparison for a beginner who doesn't have that, because, I mean, yeah, it looks easy when you have 10 years of tools that you've acquired. Like,
Right.
they offer good advice, but they might not be that useful for someone who doesn't have all that stuff.
So the reason I'm asking is there low hanging fruit there for you to start something that is unique in the respect of that you're catering to the people that want to start in that section of the industry that don't have the resources that the YouTube channels that are offering tutorials already have. So like, minimalist woodworking with Matt or something like that, or minimalist lutherie with Matt.
I do have an idea for that. I do. And Yeah, I actually do have an idea for that I've been thinking of for a while. I don't want to reveal too much, but Abby and I are trying to buy a house within the next year or so, and I had the thought that if I get into a space where I'm going to have more of a workshop space, I would actually tape off a section of my workshop, a tiny section. Basically, I'd make it kind of clickbaity, and it would be like a luthier's workshop in 10 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that, I can fit the workbench and then maybe like a chest full of tools underneath the workbench, all within about 10 square feet or less. And the idea is that, hey, here's how you can get started with this, with a kind of minimalist set of tools.
Yeah,
I
I
do
mean,
want to do something like that. I actually think that there would be great value in that, and I would love to do like a video series based on that. I just don't quite have the setup to do that
well,
right now.
like you could even do like some alliteration, like Matt the Minimalist or something like that. Like you could use M
Hmm.
and M, or something around that. And like, yeah, like your whole brand could be like, if you have 10 square feet of space or whatever your thing was, like you can do this, right?
I do
And let
want
me
to do
show
something
you
like
how.
that. Yeah, I do want to do something like that. I want to show people that you can do lutherie and you can do woodworking and you can make beautiful instruments, and you don't have to have a ton of money. You don't have to have a ton of space. You don't have to have a ton of specialized tools. It's possible. I do want to do something like that in the future. I like your alliteration idea, so yeah, it's good. I'm getting some ideas.
Well, I'm just thinking if you could start to like, I mean, granted, there's a lot of work in getting a YouTube channel up or whatever you would do, but like, if you could get to a point where you got a decent following, then you would have a fan base to sell products to. You'd have a fan base to do maybe Patreon stuff with. You'd have a fan base. You might get sponsored for certain videos once you get to a certain point. StuMac might like sponsor you at some point, right? Like I mean, that's all future stuff, but like that's where the value of having, if there isn't someone filling that market right now, like it's your opportunity to fill the market. Um, and if I mean that's being done in the music realm, right? Like the whole like, here's how you can get into the music realm for cheap, or like, like anyone can do this type of thing. But if it's not being done at the lutherie level, like I think there's an opportunity there. Um,
I think there is. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't release this idea. I do have some ideas,
I
honestly,
mean, to
for
be fair,
this.
there's not enough people listening to this. There's like maybe 8 people, like, and all of
Someone's
them
gonna
are
steal
like
it.
our friends and family. But
Yeah. No, and some people in India. Okay.
can't
I'm just, um,
believe you said that. I'm gonna have to bleep that out.
why? What's wrong? We have like one consistent listener from India, and I don't know who it is.
I'm just kidding.
According to our metrics, and I'm like curious who in India is listening to our podcast.
I want to know. Um, but honestly, it could be one of, how we have that podcast email and we get emails from these like podcast companies that say, "Hey, really love
Oh,
that episode 50. Have you considered like using our advertising thing?" I bet you it might be like that. Where
well,
it's like,
okay, Ethan. I thought it was an actual fan. Now you had to ruin my night here.
the reality is we don't know. We don't know
Hmm.
either way.
It's someone specifically listening for ideas on YouTube channels.
Yeah. Yeah, They're like, these guys, they got some good ideas. Like, we're gonna steal it from them.
No, I do have some. I have actually thought about that pretty seriously, and I actually have a whole like idea or like framework for a series of videos on literally starting from nothing. Having 10 square feet of space and basically, building a workbench, like, building a toolbox to hold your tools, like acquiring the tools. Like, I have a whole like idea in mind for like a series of like fixing up the vintage tools.
Well, you need to buy your house so you can get to that point. Make sure that you're the one that creates it, not somebody else. Uh,
All right.
let's muddy the waters. So, to muddy the waters for someone who's listening to this and trying to come up with ideas, but doesn't really understand what we're saying. What if we came up with a YouTube series called 101 Ways to Eat Peanut Butter? And then it's
What
just
the heck are
very,
you talking about?
very strange ways to eat peanut butter, like through a straw, or first, uh,
I'll
uh,
start a competing channel called Maximalist Luthier, where you only use each tool one single
okay,
time ever.
okay, you're joking, you are joking, but I feel like there's a satire thing there that you could do that would be funny. Like, have you ever seen Tool Time? You know, like Home Improvement Tool Time. Like
Yes.
how it's like over the top. Like it could be that, right? Like where it could be like, here's how you make a guitar, and it's the most ridiculous like thing ever, like over the top. There's actually one thing that I thought would be kind of funny is uh my dad and I were like talking about something at one point about him uh like separating frozen chicken with a sawzall, right?
Mm.
And so I was like, dude, you should make a YouTube channel that's called Cooking with Power Tools. And all it is cooking with just power tools. Like, it would be like reasonably entertaining if you like presented it in a way like you were totally serious about this. Present it this is how you think people should cook and like all that stuff. Like I would I would click on something like that, like
Hmm.
um so there's stuff like there's definitely opportunity there too for like satire, like that kind of stuff. I've thought about doing like something uh like a satire on personal development, right? Like how they tell you to like um oh, I can't think of something right now, but like, the whole like think positive, but like come up with some kind of satirical thing where it's like it's presented as professional development or personal development, but it's actually terrible advice. Like, um, just something like that.
Yes.
Like just a satire of
Yeah.
uh personal development,
Do
self help.
you did you ever watch PBS as a kid?
Yeah.
So there were two shows that I think started as far back as maybe the 80s
Uh-huh.
that were on woodworking that were on PBS.
Oh, really?
There were two shows. Yeah. The one was called The Woodwright Shop and one was called The New Yankee Workshop. And they basically had very opposite approaches to woodworking. And they were both serious shows, but you could kind of almost make them satirical of each other slightly. So the Woodwright Shop was traditional hand tool woodworking. And that was actually that show, and the person who hosted it, Roy Underhill, um
Who's a hobbit?
no, he's not a hobbit, but um I mean, Roy Underhill was a big pioneer sort of in helping revitalize interest in hand tool woodworking in an era when it really the future for hand tool woodworking was pretty bleak at that time. Um And then Norm Abrams was the host of the new Yankee Workshop, and he was sort of, I think, what people imagine.
Death to
Like
hand
he was
tools.
he was what was popular in that area. You know, he had a specialized tool for every application, and they were just very opposite ways of woodworking, and both are perfectly valid. You know, both produced beautiful things, but both shows were on PBS, and they were very different. And I don't know. I'm getting sidetracked here, but that kind of reminds me of what we're talking about a little bit.
I've totally had some ideas for this whole like satire on self-help thing. I just can't think of any of the good ones right now, but I'm like, oh, it'd be hilarious if like someone did this and presented it as like this will make you so much better, because it's like almost funnier when there's a little bit of truth to it, but it's also terrible advice. Like,
Yeah, I've seen. I know what you're talking about. I've seen videos like that. Alrighty. Well, I think this is
I think this is our
This
episode
little-
55.
yeah. This little impromptu conversation, I think, ended up being episode 55. So, did you have anything else you'd like to add for this episode?
Nope. I just think the episode title is probably going to be called "The Cost of Admission" because
I think that's a good
it came up
episode
multiple
title.
times.
Yeah.
Either
so,
that or I'll come up with some really goofy thing, like I usually
as
do.
you always do.
Nope. I think that's all I got.
Alrighty. Well, what is the cost of admission in your hobbies and in your goals? We'd love to hear about it. Let us know.
In the comments section down below,
Yeah, let
or-
us know.
wherever the comments section is.
All right. Well, I think that is it for episode 55. Until next time, stay tuned.